I'm your host, Carmen Wild, and welcome to Business Without Barriers, the show proving we can overcome the myriad barriers we're facing and create enriching futures when we bring humanity back to business. Our guest today is all about award-winning performance. Ebrahim Tootla, fondly known as Toots, is the head of Shari'ah Treasury and Finance at Standard Bank, the largest bank in Africa. In 2015, he joined Standard Bank on a training contract and on his rotations discovered his passion for treasury management and Islamic banking and negotiated a role which interlinked these passions. When he joined Sharia Banking, it was only at concept stage. And now just 4 years later, its financial position has surpassed competitors who've been in the market much longer. And they're pioneering the market with South African, and even world firsts. Toots is a 2020 SAICA nominee for the Top 35 Under 35 Award and is one of 50 people globally awarded a scholarship to complete the Certified Islamic Professional Accountant qualification. The maxim, "There are no problems in life, only opportunities," governs Ebrahim. Toots was one of my mentees on the Thrive program I run for Standard Bank. So it is a privilege and a special honor to have him on the show today. A very, very warm welcome to you today, Toots.
Hi, Carmen. Thank you for that lovely introduction. And yes, it's a pleasure to be here again with you. And I think, again, before we start, I'd just like to say thank you for all the assistance you've given me through the Thrive program. And I don't think we can downplay the part that you've played in ensuring that I follow this path.
It's an absolute pleasure. It warms my heart to see what you've done. And as in any mentoring, we can only pass on the tools and insights. The mentee has to do something with it. And you sure have done that. And I'm so excited to hear all about it, your journey over the last few years in the next hour. So starting there, the number of things that you pull off Toots in a short period of time is absolutely staggering. Do you ever sleep?
Yes, I think sleep is important. I think initially when I started, one of the things that you sort of struggle with when you start working is finding that work-life balance. And especially being someone new in the bank and joining on a grad program, you sort of need to work harder, or you feel you need to really work harder and push yourself to try and, make an impression on people.
Yes.
And I remember when I started on one of my first days, someone told me, like, even if they ask you to make photocopies, make sure it's the best damn photocopies they've ever seen. So, trying to sort of figure out how to sort of, make people aware of your capabilities and your skills. I think initially it was tough, but once you sort of get through, you have to get through a point in your career where people would then know what your abilities are. And this would then enable you to sort of lay back and have a better work-life balance, because not having one leads to extreme burnout. And, if you're firing at only 80%, it's just not going to work out, and you're not going to bring your best self every day. So, yeah, I think there was a time where, the 4 or 5 hours sleep a day was there. Mm-hmm. But I think, you need to make sure that you do have a proper rest and a proper work-life balance.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you get in a little bit life in amongst all the hard work. So in your first year of studies, your dad lost his job. What did you do to self-fund your studies? How did you pull that off?
I did anything and everything I could. So one of the things I was really passionate about in school was mathematics, one of my favorite subjects. So a friend of mine actually was really good at accounting. And I actually told him, why don't we try and start up this tuition center? So what we did was we got a bit of money together and we bought a whiteboard, and we found a sort of small room to rent. It was a small mini office in a garage or a filling station. So yeah, we put up a whiteboard and, we advertised a bit. I think being first year in university, you're just out of school. So, those kind of people who are just behind you and, put the word out. And, through the networks we built at school and people knew us, we managed to get through a good following, a good lot of students. I even knew someone who does these, they call them like magnetic signs that you stick to your car. So yeah, I made one and I would go past the school to pick up my sister who was younger than me. So, it was like direct advertising at the school we were at. So yeah, so that was one of the main things. But I mean, we did other things, we installed car stereos. I did a bit of carpentry, like anything you could imagine.
Oh, that's incredible.
December jobs, everything, yeah.
What industriousness. That's and it just shows you where there's a will, there's a way, and you managed to do all of that whilst keeping at your studies. That's just incredible. Then, Toots, as if that wasn't pressure enough, in your CTA year, you didn't only have that pressure of your actual studies, your grandparents. You lost 3 of your grandparents in months. How did you manage to deal with loss and have your studies and still working? How do you do all of that? What was the driver that kept it all together for you?
Yeah. So yeah, CTA is sort of like the honors year.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, I got a bursary for my honors year, or full bursary, so that took a load off. I don't think I would have been able to study full time and work for honors. It's super tough. But yeah, I lost 3 of my grandparents in the space of 3 months.
Oh.
And I was really, really close to my grandfather. Like my parents, even my aunts and uncles often say that we kind of very alike, very similar, and we spent a lot of time together. And it was really, really tough. And I think the thing that got me through it is, you sort of realize that life needs to eventually go on. And it's what they would have wanted. My grandfather always said, you need to try and, make a success of yourself, do something to sort of, make yourself self-sufficient in the world. And, I think after the sort of initial mourning and all of that, I think a day just came where I said, I need to get over this and move on. And after my grandmother passed away first, and I think I just got over it. And then my other grandmother passed away. And just a month later, my granddad passed away.
Wow.
And I think, eventually I just got to that point where I said, what, I need to work hard. It was coming to the tail end of the year. And I just looked at the sort of marks I needed to get. And I said, I've put in all of this effort, done all the hard work, and to sort of, like throw it away now, it's just not good enough. And it's not what they would have wanted. So I think in order to make them proud and, do justice to myself was the sort of driving force of just trying to get there.
Sure. And how proud they would be right now of everything that you've accomplished. During your contract at Standard Bank, it's really interesting when we look at your time, the years, the short space of time you've been exposed to a lot. So not only life circumstances, but really interestingly, it's like something's shaping and molding you for all these amazing things that is meant to be in for you. You got an opportunity to be country champion in the DRC, Zimbabwe, and Nigeria. What were some of the lessons that you got to learn already so early in your career from those experiences?
Yeah. I suppose maybe if I can just share with you a small anecdote from my first rotation. So I walked in on the first day, and one of the managers there was like, we have this call at 6 o'clock and you need to be there to take minutes. And, I thought he was joking up until like, I think it was like 5:15. And it's like, are you ready for the meeting? I'm like, it's my first day. Like, I got a book, I got a pen. So, we can do this thing. And as we were walking to the meeting, he's like, I really was joking with you the whole day, but I mean, you made it till now. So let's just do this thing.
So you were tested as well. And
Yeah, on the first day.
Oh.
Yeah. So I think the lessons I learned from dealing with our counterparts in Africa is just sort of how easy we have it here in South Africa. Things we take for granted, like the infrastructure, the like internet speed. It takes some of our people in Africa like 2 or 3 hours one way just to travel to work.
Sure.
And the internet speeds are terrible. For them to upload documents takes a really, really substantial amount of time. Whereas with us, it's just send the email, attach, and, within a few seconds, it's gone. And, one thing you learn is just, I think, to be thankful for what we have in South Africa, but also just appreciate like how much harder it is for these people to just do simple tasks. And, just try and assist them through it, understand what their predicament is, and, just move forward with that. I think that was one of the lessons that you needed to learn. It's, I want to say, perseverance.
Absolutely. And what a nice grounding then so earlier in your career to have that appreciation, because you approach tasks so much differently then, as opposed to the typical problems that we may see or the complaints that we could fall into. Yes. Didn't become your trap. So let's go into your passion, Sharia Banking. Let's start with what the difference is. It's not, I didn't even completely know the difference. What is the difference between Sharia banking and conventional banking in a nutshell?
Okay. So between the conventional banking and Islamic banking, maybe let's go into the definition of Sharia. So Sharia is just basically the law or Islamic law that needs to be followed. It can be extended to the law of the Abrahamic faith, but it just sort of depends on your scholarly opinion of what you think the meaning is. So Islamic banking, Sharia banking, I would say probably interchangeable terms. The differences between conventional and Islamic banking is 3. So the first one being what they would call, I want to say, like I think they call it haram activities, but it needs to be activities that are allowed. So for instance, I think you could liken this to your sin industries. So things like pornography, gambling, tobacco, arms, all of these things are not allowed in Islamic law. And therefore, dealing with companies that invest in these businesses is not allowed, or whose main objective is these businesses not allowed. Then once you get through that filter of is your business activity ethical or not, you get two differences. One is what they would call riba, which I want to say loosely translates into interest. And in terms of interest, you have this whole concept of time value of money. And I think at the heart of this definition of interest, money is treated as a medium of exchange in Sharia and not an asset. So I can't give you money and charge you for the use thereof, because that's interest and money is not an asset. And the second one being uncertainty or risk. So in Sharia or Islamic banking, risk has to be shared between the parties of a transaction. So if I give you a normal overdraft facility or a normal loan facility at a bank, the bank says, come and you pay me 10% of this 100,000 that I've given you, no matter what happens to your business. Whereas in Islamic banking, there is a sort of partnership agreement where the risk is shared between both counterparties. So high level.
That's really interesting. So from just out of interest then, so how as the bank, how are you gaining your income?
So I think a large portion is due to the fact that people sort of want to bank or do their business dealings in a way that their religion prescribes them to. So Islam is a religion where they not only speak about, or it doesn't only speak about sort of acts of worship and belief, but it has rules and laws governing every single aspect of life, being how you should treat your neighbors, your parents, how inheritance should be spread, how to deduct or how to do your charitable affairs. All of these things are covered within Islamic law. And I suppose people want to bank in a way that's in line with their religion or their traditional values. And the second part is that ethical component. So in Islamic banking, there is a large proportion of customers who are not Muslim or maybe don't subscribe to Sharia or Islamic law, but bank with Islamic banking or Sharia banking because they know the money is not going into gambling or pornography or arms and all of these things.
Okay, that's interesting. Sure, very interesting. So when you were in your honors year, you effectively were part of this two-man team that started the bank within a bank. And when I look at the insane list of tasks and that you were responsible for, I'm like, well, how does one person do this? So I'm going to just read some of these tasks: technical papers, tax papers, product specs, training manuals, business plans, modeling cash flows, capital budgets, risk monitoring, interacting with customers, building products on IT systems, building an entire funding program that is Islamic banking compliant. This is like not even all. It's just a few of these tasks that you were busy with. So, and what's interesting about it is that you were still effectively a student. Many of the things that you were doing, you hadn't actually really even been exposed to through your studies or didn't have firsthand experience. Mm-hmm. How did you manage? What was the secret for you to plow into all these various tasks and fly with them and then and do really well?
So I think the first driving force was the fact that it's something that's close to me and it's my passion. And I think if you speak to anyone who's sort of at the forefront of their field that they're passionate about, would tell you that it's probably not a job. It's something that I find interesting and something that I love to do. And I think you also talk about this a lot through your training. Mm-hmm. Maybe not directly, but definitely allude to it a lot. And I think by virtue of finding my passion, for me, it might sound cliche, but it was not a job. And for me to consume the knowledge that had to deal with this was something that I found interesting. And the more I learned and the more I went into it, the more I knew that I didn't know or the more I had to figure out. So I think that sort of passion coupled with the fact that as a person, I'm sort of, I want to say, a natural problem solver. Like whenever I see something wrong or something broken, I'm like, there must be a way to fix it, hence why the maxim is there's no sort of that, there's no problems, only opportunities. Mm-hmm. And, those two things I think were my driving force in order to get this and, just try and push it forward. And, as you said, when you tell people, we did everything, they don't really understand or fully understand what everything encompassed. We did everything from like speak to the customer to write off the back of back ends that you wouldn't even see or know about in terms of banking. So I think, yes, definitely those two driving forces of problem solving and this was my definite passion, I want to say, forced me to stay in the game and learn as much as I could and consume as much knowledge as I could.
Absolutely. And it's given you such an intimate knowledge of absolutely every single process involved in this bank, which gives you that helicopter view and makes you even better at what you do when you've completed each task yourself, which is amazing. What were the biggest barriers that you've experienced, or what were and maybe still are some of the biggest barriers that you've experienced in setting up this bank within a bank?
I think the barriers have been, I think, numerous, going through, I suppose, all of the compliance committees, or maybe if I just take a step back, in order to get a product live or some sort of product live in the market, it has to adhere to so many different legal frameworks, so many compliance frameworks. It has to work on some IT system, and it has to follow some sort of accounting, tax treatment. So all of these things need to be looked at. And passing through all of these items is that Sharia lens of what makes this product compliant and what's the sort of non-negotiables that needs to be put into the product in order to make sure that Sharia compliance is maintained. And I think one of the biggest barriers was, trying to meet with all of these people and explain to them that this is what we're trying to do. And, just bringing them around to the idea of what Islamic banking is and how the products differ, and, just sort of flip their understanding of what banking is on a fundamental level in terms of that whole definition of what is money and how Islamic banking works, and developing products that are then in line with all these compliance standards, and putting it out into the hands of the customer where they can consume it just in the way that they used to. Because I think Islamic banking is only, probably can't quote me on this, but I want to say, it's probably less or around about 50 years old. And, conventional banking's been around for like 1,000 years. And people are used to doing banking in that way, especially in South Africa, where, it's sort of like a new thing, or Islamic banking is relatively new compared to the conventional banks. And, people want to consume or want the product to have that look and feel that they've understood for years and for generations. So I think getting that balance of everything right, between what's compliant in terms of the Sharia, what's compliant in terms of the rules of the country, what's possible on the IT platforms, and what's that voice of the customer, and how do we package this whole thing where everyone is happy and sort of make money out of this thing. It's, I want to say, the barrier or the challenge, but it's ongoing. It's something that we work on daily.
Wow. So many complexities involved, many different stakeholders involved. What did you, was there something that you found in that kind of diverse situation that helped you get to that finish line where you got everybody buying into it? Do you have a little secret Toots thing that you do, or what did you do? How do you do it?
I think consultation is key, and, co-creation, or giving people that ability to co-create with you. So before we'd even start with something, we'd go out to the individual stakeholders, and I'd ask them, this is what we want to do. This is how we envisage it working. What's your thoughts? And, giving them that sort of sense that they're co-creating something with you gives them better buy-in, as opposed to them saying, actually, the border patrol that you need to cross to get in, if that sort of analogy makes sense.
Yes.
So I think that was the sort of thing that assisted the most in terms of getting, buy-in from a lot of the stakeholders. Was, we in this together, and I need your input to get this thing out to market.
Fantastic, which is very much the theme of this program. In fact, the vision of Business Without Barriers is that we look to collaboration rather than competition, given the global climate that we're in and the complexity of the challenges we're experiencing, that we're better equipped to do that together than to do it alone, which is what you're speaking about, is that co-creation and getting people's buy-in that way. 4 years down the line, the financial position of the Standard Bank Sharia Bank has surpassed competitors, and it's the winner of the 2020 Global Islamic Finance Awards, making it the best emerging Islamic bank in the world. What do you think you guys have done to create such a competitive edge?
I think it's been listening to that voice of the customer and putting it into play. So looking at the Islamic banking market in South Africa, they've offered a lot of vanilla type of products. So by that, I mean, your normal transactional accounts or your current account, where you have your debit card and you swipe it and that sort of thing works, and a savings pocket may be linked to that, and your normal vehicle finance, home loans and things like that. And I think what's made us sort of win the award was probably things like the innovations we've done. So introduced new products that are probably a bit more structured, and also, listening to the voice of the customer and trying to develop products that in the way the customer wants them to be developed and consumed. So I think it's also the short amount of time. So we launched our first product in August 2016 to the market. And, in that short space of time, we've put a lot of products on our shelves. But I think we live in a world where instant gratification is the norm. Mm. And I think we just can't work fast enough for customers. But if you step back and look at it, I think we've achieved quite a lot in that short space of time.
What was the take-up over this period of time? Because you've actually, I didn't realize that you didn't have to be, you've got people outside of the Islam religion that's actually taking up these products. Mm-hmm. So what kind of numbers did you start seeing over the years?
Cool. So I can't share with you the exact numbers because
sure.
You know how the industry is. But I'd say take up has been good, and we're still seeing growth till today from our products that we've launched in August 2016. So take up has been increasing, and even through the global pandemic and COVID-19 and lockdown, we've still seen growth in our product, which I think is an amazing thing. Absolutely. And as we put in more and more products on the shelves, we solution more customer demand, and we see that sort of pull in more customers.
Awesome. In terms of so you're in quite a niche area, yet you've mentioned how important mentorship has been for you. So were your mentors outside of Islamic banking? Where did you draw your mentorship from?
So I drew my mentorship from someone whose passion is sort of aligned to mine. So my mentor is Barbara, and Barbara Bell she's now the CFO of PBB Global for Standard Bank. But at the time, she was part of or in charge of the PBB Treasury. And I sort of had a dotted line into her in terms of the Sharia products or the Shari'ah Treasury management. And, working with her, she firstly taught me most of the stuff that I know today. But she also really pushed me, she wasn't satisfied with just that mediocre or even, I want to say, above average performance, and always pushed me to try harder, get more insights, think of more creative solutions, and all of these things, And I think because her passion lies in the same area that I work in, or that my passion lies, again, it never really seemed as work, or I want to say unfair, or that she was being difficult on me. But I felt like she was encouraging my learning and developing me in a way that, would ultimately benefit me, and I think benefit the bank as a whole. And even when I asked her to be my mentor, she said I should put together sort of a mentorship agreement, which would outline exactly what I'm looking for in the relationship. And I mean, we chatted about it, and coming through that, I think having it specifically outlined, we have that back and forth to say, this is what I'm looking for, and to hold each other accountable to, are we keeping each other's ends of the deals intact and upholding our promises to each other and all of these things. So it's definitely been a huge help to have a mentor whose passion is sort of aligned to mine, because they've been through the journey and are so far down the road that things that they've forgotten already, you still have to learn. So it sort of jumpstarts your journey and really fast tracks you, puts you really, really far ahead of where you would have been if you ordinarily tried and learn this all on your own.
Fantastic. What an amazing mentor to have behind you. So you kind of right at the outset went straight into leadership. So you're a young leader in a country that sorely needs good leadership. What's the kind of leadership style that you would love to hone and become known for?
So my leadership style is, I think I like to manage people in the way that I like to be managed. And for me, that's, here's the problem, you are free to go and find a solution. And if you need anything, I'm always here and available for you to speak to, get ideas. I don't want you to sit in the corner and worry about it, but I want you to take ownership of this thing, because I feel people learn the best when they apply themselves, as opposed to just asking for the answer. Because, if you work for something, you'll remember it that much better. And if you work hard at it, and apply your mind to it, it will sort of ingrain itself in you and give you a whole different perspective, as opposed to just being given the answer or the step-by-step process to get somewhere. So I like to pass on that sort of deep understanding to people, because I feel it just makes them better. Because if you have deeper understanding and better knowledge of what you're working on, it gives you the ability to, I want to say, fix it or find problems or figure out where the actual hiccups are, and, streamline processes and all of these things. But without that deep level understanding, where I want to say, almost robotic in execution, you're not going to worry about all of these other aspects. And you're just going to sort of sit there and, execute on your widget every month or however often you need to do this, and not offer any deeper and further insights.
Okay, so it's about knowledge for you, accountability, and action.
Yes.
Okay, great, which is exactly what we need. We need more leaders to offer those, especially the accountability. And then acting on what we're meant to be doing and adding that value. So you've come through your CA training, and right now, I mean, I think in any given year, there's at least within Standard Bank and many other financial institutions, there are graduates, CA graduates, doing their training. Given what you know now and the journey you've had over the last 4 years, what advice would you give to CAs still going through their training? And not every graduate understands the wealth of the opportunities in front of them, or potentially the opportunity for them to already grab the opportunities available to them. They've got maybe like a graduate hat on or a student hat on. You did the complete opposite. You didn't ever act really like a student. You just hit the ground running. What advice would you love to give to fellow CA delegates or graduates right now that would help them accelerate the pace of their success journey?
So I am a registered assessor, so that's someone who signs off the CA trainees in terms of their competencies. So the advice I give to my my graduates or my trainees is, you know, that same advice I told you I get on my first day is no matter what job you do, make sure you do it well. Because at the end of the day, you're selling your personal brand to someone. And by selling your personal brand well, people would see the value that you can input into their business or wherever it is. And leaving that good impression is only going to assist you. So I think that's the first one. And the second one is, get that understanding of what you're doing. It doesn't mean that you're in a role that's only about finance or financial reporting, that you just worry about the numbers, where do I get the numbers from? Where do I put them to? Does the PowerPoint or does this income statement look right? But look deeper into it and actually understand what drives it. What's the limiting factors? How can we do this better? How does the business actually operate? Because if you have that deeper understanding of that aspect or that rotation you've been through, it's going to only assist you to apply that knowledge somewhere else. Because it's always just about, how much of this bank can you tie together? Because as much as we've put things into silos, or I want to say segregated everything, it's just a matter of ease of reference. But if you want to be in a leadership position or be somewhere where you can really make a difference, you need to be someone who can understand the sum of the parts and how they tie together. So for me, it's that two things. It's make sure that you always understand why you do something, and make sure you persevere and do everything well.
Fantastic. And come and speak to Toots to get some advice on how you do a lot of things well at the same time. What's the next big milestone for you? What do you have your sights on?
So for me, I think it's getting that full set of products in South Africa out. And then, hopefully replicating what we've done in South Africa to other African countries. And I think also probably studying further in terms of Islamic finance. And I think because it's my passion, wherever the journey takes me or wherever Islamic finance can utilize my skill set, to sort of be there and, try and promote it, design it, or do whatever needs to happen to sort of move it forward to the next level.
Awesome. Sounds like a lot of amazing opportunities ahead for you, and that you can create them as well, because you mentioned something about so much of Africa being unbanked, and you being able to, through this particular product, bring this form of banking to Africa. So you've got an entire continent to set foot on, which is incredible. I don't think you're going to run out of a lot of work very soon, Toots.
Unfortunately not.
No, I don't think so. The payoff line for Business Without Barriers is bringing humanity back to business. And when we consider, and it's interesting, what you've mentioned about Islamic banking is very much those principles, is the human principles that you are bringing into the banking system. Why do you think it's important for us to, and maybe you can speak from an Islamic perspective, why has it been so important to the industry to bring those principles into banking? What does it do and why is it important?
So I think maybe from an Islamic perspective, I'm probably not best qualified to speak to it, but I mean, I'll try and give it a go. Mm-hmm. So I think it's been important to put in these principles into business I think in principles like partnership and, transfer of skills and all of these things is important, especially in the times we find ourselves in, where people don't really know what's going on. And, a lot of people know how to run their business. But so if I give you an example, if someone's a good carpenter, they know how to do carpentry well, but they might not know how to manage their money well, or might not know how to, invest for a rainy day and all of these things. And I think what this pandemic has shown us is that knowing your business or how to execute your trade is one thing, which is important. But I think a very important skill that you need to make sure you have or have access to is how to manage your money. And, I think if we're saying, or if the payoff line is sort of bringing humanity closer to business, I think people are all enterprising and they know what they want to do. And, everyone has their dreams and aspirations and passions. But it's that how do I execute it part that, a lot of them don't have access to. Because, they don't know how to find their dreams, how to write a business plan, how to just start the business, what is that first step? And I think that's an important part of, I think, bringing humanity back to business. Or let me say the bridge that will probably bring humanity back to business faster.
Yes, absolutely. So it's that collaborative opportunity aspect again, that like you said, the partnership, co-creating, collaborative, supporting each other rather than just being enterprising and competing.
Yes.
So let's extend it beyond Islamic banking to the financial services industry. And how do you think financial services as an industry would benefit if it were even more focused on the humanity elements of care and compassion and truth and even love? What do you think the changes would be if we were to change the industry in that way?
So I think basically, or very basically, banks sort of make money based off the normal business transactions. Because no matter what business you have, there has to be some sort of flow of funds, some sort of payment, some sort of receipt, some sort of, banking services that's needed. And by banks assisting to grow business, I think not only will their revenues grow, but the customer base would grow. And I think banks are looking into these ecosystems nowadays, which is how do we facilitate the entire ecosystem of a product? If it's a mine somewhere in the middle of nowhere, that mine would then need a water supply. They'd need food. They need energy, people to work there. They need infrastructure and all the people in these supply chains, whether it's the subsistence farmer who's going to provide fresh produce for the people who work on the mine, right down to the companies who would supply the actual mining equipment. And, how do we touch each and every aspect of that supply chain, understand it, and develop a way in which it's easier for them to transact with each other? And I think by virtue of doing that, you don't only grow the businesses, but grow the communities around them, which I think uplifts the entire country and hopefully, the world.
From a personal perspective, Toots, what brings you fulfillment?
I think going to work every day and doing something that I really, really, really love. It's been really, it's really rewarding. And I think I can't be thankful enough to be one of those people who is working with my passion and, still learning and still being exposed to things that are new, things that I never thought about. And, just continuing this journey of doing something that I am really, really, into. It's being really, really fulfilling.
That's amazing. And what is exciting about the future? For a lot of people, the future is there's uncertainty, it's scary, it's daunting. For you, what is exciting about the future?
I think COVID has sped up a lot of digitization in the world. And, I want to say hopefully soon we'll be in a post-COVID era where, hopefully this virus will be behind us and we never hear about it again. And for me, you see companies like I want to say Apple and Google and Microsoft, they've all sort of been dishing out this recipe for digitization over the years, but also by virtue of dishing it out, they've had some of the secret sauce themselves. And if you look at your largest stock markets or stock markets around the world, you see these are the companies that are actually doing really, really well. And it's because they've digitized their businesses and they focused on how to, I want to say, future-proof themselves. And a lot of companies, when hit with COVID and lockdowns and all of these things, were forced to implement these digitizations to their business. So for me, I think the exciting thing in the future is, in a post-COVID era, how is business going to happen? What does this digitization look like? And I mean, I think it's made the world a smaller place. I mean, we a few thousand kilometers apart, but speaking as if, you're right here in front of me.
Yes.
It's been exciting for me. And I think that's something that I really look forward to, is just how the world, is fast-tracked on this whole future-proofing, or maybe even future-proofing is a bit delayed now because we're already, in the future. So just how the world got fast-tracked into digitizing and, moving their business forward in line with the times.
A final question. If you could speak with the 7 billion people on the planet right now, what message would you love to share?
I think the first message is that we all live on planet Earth. And unfortunately, we only have one planet Earth. So, if everybody could respect it and, treat it with respect, because, there's no reset button. So in terms of like emissions and, protecting wildlife and all of those things, looking after natural resources, I think, if we could all just do our part to do that. But I think the more important message, or the bigger message, is, treat everyone the way you want to be treated. Because, if you don't like to be, treated with disrespect or in a way that you find undignifying, then you shouldn't find yourself treating others like that. And I think by perpetuating that behavior, you will make the world a better place.
Thank you for that. And thank you, Toots, for sharing these moments with us, about sharing your journey and showing us what's possible in a very, very short space of time. What you put your mind to, what becomes possible with the right people around you, but most importantly, with that absolute desire and passion for what you do. And this maxim that you have, there are no problems in life, only opportunities. That has been, it's what you live your life by, and you've just broken through so many barriers in such a short space of time. And you're only at the beginning. You're right at the beginning of your career, and it's already been such an incredible journey. So thank you for sharing that with us and showing what's possible, and that it doesn't have to take long to achieve your goals. And I want to wish you the best of luck. I'm going to be watching closely to see what Saika does in terms of the top 35 under 35 award, and whatever else you put your mind to. Best wishes, lots of love on your journey, and let's stay in touch. I know you're going to do great things.
Cool. Thank you so much, Carmen, for letting me be on your show. And thank you, I think, for the mentorship and the skill set you've given me back when I was on the program. And yeah, hopefully I am one of the finalists. So I am one of the top 35 under 35, but they do have the announcement for the winner of each category and then an overall winner. So they sort of like the top 5. So yeah, hopefully watch the space, and yeah, keep rooting for me.
Absolutely rooting for you. So thank you. Go well, and I'm all ears. Let's stay in touch.
Thanks, Carmen.
So to the
I think if I
yes, go on.
I want to leave you at sort of maybe the last line, at the risk of destroying your tagline, is there are no barriers, only opportunities.
Absolutely. And that's why the show is Business Without Barriers. Because actually my thinking is exactly the same, that the barriers are the barriers in our minds. And actually there are opportunities, the barriers are the opportunities for breakthrough if we apply our mind to it. So thank you. We're 100% aligned on that.
Thank you, Carmen.
Thank you so much for tuning in, and be sure to subscribe to businesswithoutbarriers.tv for weekly strategies to turn barriers into success breakthroughs and thrive in a volatile world.